With this little device, you can play the original Game Boy Tetris with friends over the internet. And here's how. It all started with my last video where I mined Bitcoin on the Game Boy. As I now had a USB to link cable adapter, I thought, what's next? And then I got an idea. What if I build something that lets me play Tetris against my friends over the internet? Because for the past year, meeting friends and playing with them in person hasn't really been an option, and I thought it would be really fun to sit with some friends in Discord and play Tetris on the original Game Boy against each other. In case you haven't played Game Boy Tetris via link cable before, here's how it works. You connect two Game Boys to each other, select two player, the host selects the music, and then both get to select a handicap. And when the game starts, both players get the same tiles. There are two ways to win. The first is by being the first who clears 30 lines. The second one is if your opponent fills up. You can make life for your opponent harder by clearing multiple lines at once, which will send lines to your opponent that will be added to the bottom of his stack. When I started searching for the details of the communication protocol, I was surprised to not really find much, and so I started reverse engineering it myself. And after staring into the logic analyzer for a bit, I had all the details together to build it. The way the Tetris link cable protocol works is that the Game Boy that starts the two-player game basically becomes the game host. And when the game is started, the hosting Tetris will randomly generate 256 Tetrominos and send them to the client Tetris. This is done to ensure that both players get the same tiles. After that, each Tetris sends its current height to the other one and also notifies if multiple lines have been cleared or if the player won or lost. My goal was to build something that would allow me to play Tetris not only against one player, but against 2, 3 or many others, making it possible to even have a Battle Royale Tetris competition. To do that, my idea was to let my computer act as the game host Game Boy, and to let the actual Game Boy think that it's running as the second player. The communication between the link cable and the computer is done via a Raspberry Pi Pico plus some level shifters, which acts as the USB to link cable adapter. To communicate with the adapter, I would have to build a game client that runs on the computer. This game client would then talk to an online game server that provides basic match creation and match management functionality. Using this architecture, multiple Game Boys can talk to the same game server. The game server, on game start, will send the same tiles to all of the connected clients, which will then forward it to the actual Game Boy. During the game, the server will handle if one of the Game Boys fills up and distribute that information to all other clients. Eventually, all but one Game Boy will either fill up and win, or someone finishes the 30 lines first and wins that way. Now, in my last video, I already used the Raspberry Pi Pico combined with some level shifters and a modified link cable to connect the Game Boy to my computer. This is not really something you can send to your friends, and it also was not really easy to use or particularly stable. And so I decided to design a custom PCB that has the level shifters and the Raspberry Pi Pico on board. It's much easier to handle and doesn't require cutting open a link cable because it has the link cable connectors directly on board. It is also both compatible with the original Game Boy connector as well as with the connector of the Game Boy Pocket, Color and the Advance and Advance SP. On the other side, we have a Raspberry Pi Pico that provides all the logic and USB functionality. I am also excited to announce that I am now manufacturing these boards and will sell them as a small kit. The more difficult to solder components will already be soldered onto the board, and you just have to quickly solder on a Raspberry Pi Pico, either through hole or using a pin socket or just soldering it on surface mount style like I did here. This allows you to experiment with the link cable protocol yourself and to play Tetris against your friends over the internet. You can find the link to order one in the description. Alternatively, you can also sacrifice a link cable and use a couple of level shifters and a breadboard to build your own adapter. I'll put some instructions for that into the GitHub repository. For the firmware, I wanted to try something I hadn't used before, WebUSB. I wanted to make usage of the adapter as simple as possible, without having to deal with building drivers for different operating systems, and without having to deal with building a cross-platform application for Windows, Linux and macOS. And WebUSB allows me to do just that. When you plug in the device, you get a small pop-up, and when you click it, it will lead you to a website. And that website immediately allows you to start playing. No driver installation, no downloads, nothing. You click connect and your browser starts talking to the Game Boy. Isn't this cool? And what's also really awesome, using WebUSB, the adapter can even work on Android phones. As always, the link to the GitHub repository with the code of the firmware is in the description. Now, I'm not particularly into web development, but a lot of people seem to like React, so I decided to learn a bit of React development and build a simple frontend that makes creating and joining a match super simple. You visit the website, you click connect, select the GameLink adapter, and the website will then automatically connect to your Game Boy. Next, the web interface allows you to choose your tune. Obviously Music A is the only acceptable choice, but if you really want to, you can also select one of the other melodies or turn music off entirely. Next, you can choose a username and either create a new match or join an existing match using a match code. When you create a new match, a unique match ID will be generated that you can send to your friends. Once everyone is connected, you simply click Start to start the game. But before we try that, we need to talk about the game server. The game server is written in Python 3, and to allow our browser application to talk to it, it's providing an API via WebSockets. The WebSockets API is relatively simple, and so for example we can ask the server to create a match and it will simply reply to us with a match ID. All other players that want to join your game will ask the server to join the match using the match ID. If the match is found and not already in progress, all players will be put into a common lobby. When the lobby creator starts the game, the server will send the same tileset to all players in the lobby and the React client will then send them to the Game Boy. From then on, the clients will report whether they won or lost and the server will distribute all the information. With all that in place, it was finally time to give it a try. But first I had to find a worthy opponent. And I thought who could be a better choice than my good friend and now Tetris arch-nemesis, Live Overflow.
Hey, this is Live Overflow, and Stack Smashing also sent me one of the USB to Game Boy link cable adapters, which means I can challenge him to a game of Tetris.
So now, with Live Overflow ready as an opponent, the game was on. So I created a new lobby and sent the code to Live Overflow so he can join. And there he is. So it's time to start the match, Live Overflow versus Stack Smashing. Round 1, go. As you can see, as soon as I hit start, my Game Boy starts the game, and so does Live Overflow's. And we are getting exactly the same tiles. You can also see that I'm a pretty terrible Tetris player. I had a strong start with a quick Tetris and you can see how the lines appear on Live Overflow's screen. Unfortunately, I couldn't keep that up and Live Overflow quickly started filling up my screen until I eventually lost. All this work, programming, testing, soldering, PCB design and so on, and I lose. Unbelievable. But wait, this is just 1 versus 1. We also need to try multiplayer, something that isn't supported by the original Tetris. And so we created another match, this time with 3 players. And it works. We all get to play together. And even better, this time Live Overflow is quickly put out of the game with only Night Owl and me remaining. But unfortunately, I lost. Again. But wow, is it fun to play. All the source code for the Pico, the game server and the front end is linked in the description. And I've also got a hosted version of the game online. Also, if you are looking for players, I've created a dedicated channel for matchmaking on my Discord. If you want to support my channel, you can order a PCB from the link in the description or support me on Patreon. I will also publish more details on how I reverse engineered the Tetris communication protocol here soon, so please subscribe if you enjoyed that kind of content. I hope you enjoyed this video and to see you on this channel again soon. Thank you.